Book of Boba Fett review. What did we think of the whole series?
That's right. Now that the finale was out, it's time to go back and decide, was the show good or was it a flop?
Well, I have interesting things to say about this, but I'm going to let Josh go first because I think I'm going to be Mr. Negative here. So,
Um, well, I guess we'll just start with the finale. And the weird thing was the finale finally somehow the finale was the one of the best episodes in the series. I'm just gonna say that. I don't know why it took them so long for it to like get like kind of hit that stride or that pacing, but I was watching like, oh, this is what I'm waiting for the whole time. And then we kind of hit it, and then it was the last episode, and then it was like, wow, that was cool. At least the ending was decent.
I'm
Overall,
hard disagree. Keep
yeah,
going.
okay.
So keep keep going.
No. You tell me, what did you think of the finale?
No. You got to finish, dude. You got to finish.
So, like I said, there was a lot of. I enjoyed the finale. Like it kind of felt more Star Warsy. Like it had a little bit more action to it. The only issue, and I thought, and I even texted Nick about this, and he could confirm, is that like Nick in the last podcast had literally said, "Man, I really hope they didn't bring Cad Bane back just to kill him in the next episode." And then they did, or apparently supposedly did, because I heard from somebody at work that if you look at the scene again, his like light or whatever on his suit's still blinking, so we don't know if that's like his vitals or whatever. But again, like kind of the funny part was, again, it felt like the best parts of that finale were with Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't know why, but apparently like Boba Fett is like cool, but like people just can't get enough of like that Mandalorian Grogu storyline. So that's what I thought on the finale right now. So I want to see what Nick thinks on the finale before we kind of like go back and get the entire show.
So you said it's one of your favorite episodes of Book of Boba Fett? Because it definitely wasn't mine. Not even close.
No?
Not even close. I was not a big fan of the
No?
finale. Like there is some moments I did like. I don't know. Again, I wasn't happy with the Cad Bane thing. I thought the Mando and Boba Fett flying around in a jetpack and like fighting back to back. I thought that part was really sick. For me, as more of a writer and stuff too, just writing issues and plot holes and things unresolved. One of my complaints about just this whole series in general, being the Book of Boba Fett, is Boba Fett is supposed to be the leader. But he shows no leadership skills throughout the entire series. What are they? They're in that that room or whatever, and they're talking to the bike girl and the bike guy. I can't remember their names for the life of me. But then you're saying that we should go back to the palace and fortify our defenses there and whatever, because it's much more defendable. And I'm like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But then there are these guys that we're just supposed to like be fans of. They're just like, no, we're staying here because we don't want to leave this town at all. Why? This, like, you would save the town if you were in a better fortified position and actually be able to defend it, like the town from there. Like,
right.
So that just, to me, just threw me off. And then when did Boba Fett have really good ideas besides that? I can't think of any at the top of my head.
I will
the good ideas were by what's her name? What's the
Well, to jump in while you're thinking, like kind of looking that up, I will agree with that. So I guess maybe what I am talking about more is that in terms of like servicing the fans and entertainment, it was a fun episode, and that's why I enjoyed it as much as I did. But I will admit that like where Nick is coming from right now, technical kind of production side of things, it was still pretty clunky. He was like, yes, I want to lead with respect, which I get. So like that's why maybe he was a little bit more like not as
I'm fine with that. I'm honestly fine with him leading by respect. But when all your good decisions are being made by Mando and Finnick, like that's kind of a problem. Like I get it, as a good leader listens to their top advisors. So like if Finnick and Mando are suggesting some good ideas, but not all of them, then that's a good balance, right? Yeah. Or if you have Or if you have, like those characters where you have like, the leader, then you have the real smart one. So the smart one is the more the
Yeah.
strategist. Like that again is more fine, but we didn't have that set up here. Then Boba Fett didn't have any real payoff, even though they won. What sure, he had a
Why did
final
he
showdown
gain?
with Cad Bane. Even as someone that I know the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, and I know the history between Boba Fett and Cad Bane through them, it just left me empty because it didn't feel like a satisfying
Yeah.
conclusion between the two, especially since he was just introduced the following episode. If it would have been more of a payoff if maybe Cad Bane was the one that killed the Tusken Raiders
Right.
back
In the first
in
place.
in the first place, but he
Yeah.
didn't. So, but then the ones that are actually responsible, it's Finnick is the one that kills him, not Boba Fett. That should have been Boba Fett.
If we're getting into the nitty gritty of it, then like I said, there were like a lot of plot holes. Like again, it was entertaining to watch, but like the thing that did, yeah, the whole like scene where like all the other like crime bosses get killed and then you don't find out it's Boba Fett was kind of weird because I'm like, wait a second, like Boba Fett's the one that like promised that he would like kill all of them if they turned on him, and then they turned on him, and it was like, don't worry, Fennec will get it, and it's just like, but like that should have been like his big moment as a boss to be like, I mean business.
The guys that promised to be neutral or whatever, they actually betrayed us.
Yeah,
And then Finnick's like, that was actually the smart decision. And he's like, yeah, it was. You knew that? Yeah. And you just let it happen? You didn't do anything about literally it to prepare for that? I thought these droidicas were cool, but like their aim is terrible. Their aim is worse than stormtroopers. I tell you. Do you see how many scenes there are of them? Like, there's the entire Freetown reinforcement villagers and like the Wookiee and all that stuff. They're all running down this pathway in the open, wide open.
I know, yeah.
No obstacles, and then the droidicas are like pew 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 pew, and they're like shooting like below, like either like way ahead of them or way below, and I'm like, what the heck? Droidicas, like original droidicas, had way better aim than this. Like, I'm telling you, like,
and they're half the size.
But this is just one of those that it dragged on, and there's multiple scenes of them just running through. In the open, like it would show that, and then it would cut somewhere else, and then it'd come back, and they're just running through, and I'm like, they've been running in the open for 20 minutes, and like nobody died.
Okay, the running for me did get pretty cheesy because like I don't know, it was like we're supposed to like have this big battle, and like like you said, for about like 10 minutes of the episode, it was just like of like the heroes trying to do stuff, right? Like Boba Fett, and Mando and stuff, and then like the like army is like running for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, I thought this was like the final battle, not like, oh my goodness, we have to like retreat for like 10 minutes right now. And I feel like that was their way of like trying to like show the invaluable aspects of Finnick, Mando, even the Black Wookiee and stuff, like as like they're the heroes that like do. But I was like, but then why did you bring in the people of Freetown to fight alongside you if they're that like incompetent? The Rancor I thought was cool, but even my buddy pointed it out, is that it was like, you've seen it that like one in those movies, right? It's kind of like similar. It's not exactly like it, but it's like how like people will be like, oh, they didn't just like fly on the eagles in Lord of the Rings to like Mount Doom or whatever. It was a bit of a plot hole in that way, where like my buddy Phil was like, so like why didn't he just bring the Rancor initially to, like, you know what I mean? Like, why didn't he have the beginning of the fight? Because it would have solved like so many problems like really quickly. So that's the problem, is that like when you have like what's almost I like to call like the atom bomb on your side, a lot of people start to question why it's just not there in the first place. Because the like the Rancor comes in 5 minutes, like cleans up the entire fight, and I'm like, cool. So and yeah, that's what Phil said. He's like, I enjoyed it, but like he's like, so like why didn't the Rancor just like come with you guys at the beginning of this entire situation? So again, I guess to reiterate, I think the entertainment for people, it was entertaining to watch, but the problem is as somebody who writes, which is Nick, and then even as somebody who like kind of like does like a lot of like editing, kind of that production stuff, there were just like certain things that
I'm going to point some things out in terms of the writing perspective specifically too here. Disney has to really understand that, and the thing is, this is like filmmaking 101, or story writing 101 or whatever, is poor pacing kills a show, a video game, whatever. Like, pacing is arguably one of the most important things. And as a writer, as a director and producer, you have to make sure every time you're editing, you make sure that the pacing is staying on track and makes sense. And that's also, I think, one of the biggest problems in this show is its pacing is terrible. And I know that sounds harsh, but I mean it, because like the backstory stuff, you should have done that in one episode, not drag it on like it did, because it just felt really clunky and out of place, and you just never know what you're getting, and it story-wise it doesn't flow good. And then and all of a sudden in episodes 5 and 6, just getting like Mandalorian focused out of nowhere. As much as a Star Wars fan, I enjoyed those. Those were by far the two best episodes in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in terms of like a story like this, again, its pacing makes no sense. And I think Disney needs to realize that you need to get rid of the Star Wars for a second and look at your characters as human beings, even if they're aliens, and make a story about humans. These characters with emotions, with drives and goals. Make them feel things, make them hurt, make them laugh. That, like, Star Wars seems to be more focused on the Star Wars aspect, and nostalgia and stuff can win stuff over for so long. But at some point, you have to start realizing, okay, throughout this whole show, I didn't think Boba Fett was a person or anything. I didn't feel any emotional attachment to him. And it's no fault to the actor at all. No fault to the actor. This is all on this episode, I think, was directed poorly and was obviously written. This whole series was written poorly, in my opinion. That, to me, is the root of almost all these issues, is the pacing itself and the lack of just the human understanding of it. And I know I sounds like I'm being super harsh, but I'm going to be the type of person, I don't want to hold back anything of how I actually feel.
Yeah. The problem's for me. So, like, the thing is, like, it had a lot of good points. Like, it did a good job for world building in terms of, like, reaching out in the Mando episodes with, like, Luke and Ahsoka, Grogu. All that was, like, flawless. The first couple episodes were actually good. Because, like, now I'm even just thinking about, like, more visually and kind of like that. The first couple episodes I didn't mind because I liked how they did a really good job of, like, the distinction between past and present. Like, when he was in the tank, I kind of liked how they did, like, that fuzzy, like, visual effect thing where, like, it'd slowly, like, come out of fuzziness into, like, clear, like, it was, like, almost like a video memory. So that was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But, like, I also felt like as the show went along, the editing got, like, really, really clunky. Like, we would just, like, stop somewhere and go somewhere else. And like you kind of said, the pacing felt weird.
That's the pacing on the editing end.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The flow of it, right? Because
it was just clunky.
That's the one, like, as an editor, when you're editing anything, you have to understand pacing to make sure that the video flows well together.
Yeah, and then even just, like, those small tricks of, like, knowing, like, how you're supposed to transition scenes. So again, like, the first couple episodes, they did well with that between past and present, which I'll give them, like, credit for that, because, like, there's so many shows that'll try to do that, and, like, they're just, like, there's, like, no distinction whatsoever, so you're kind of just, like, confused, like, what timeline you're in. Almost feel like, too, because, like, I think it was Jon Favreau who directed this as well as The Mandalorian. I don't know if maybe he
No, he didn't direct it.
Oh, he didn't do this one?
He wrote it, though.
Okay. I'm just wondering if, like, and I'm not saying this in, like, a bad way against, like, the fans or anything, but, like, I'm not sure if he suffered from kind of, like, what they did in The Force Awakens, where, like, it was, like, because they were so worried about, like, pleasing the fans, they would have just focused on, like, we're just going to write the show the way that we know how, because, like, again, they should have just kind of stuck with, like, that Mandalorian, like, space western style, because, like, that's worked out for the bounty hunters before. But instead, I think, again, they just got tied up on, like, oh, like, are the fans going to like it? Where it should just be like, nope, like, write your show, and whoever's going to like it's going to like it, and then if they don't want
to... One of the most important things you have to do besides pacing is ask yourselves, why should we care? Why should the audience care? And I think Disney or like whoever is too focused on, well, they care because it's Star Wars. No,
Yeah.
you need more than that. Why did we originally care about Star Wars? What made Star Wars what it is today?
Yeah.
Right? Yes, that's
Yeah.
the things you gotta ask. Is like, why should fans care about Boba Fett's journey? You need the motivations in there, of like, okay, Boba Fett's doing this and so on and so forth and whatever, and then you need like stakes right away. Thing was, like, we spent most of this show until episode 6 really with like, what stakes?
Yeah.
Maybe like Boba Fett wants revenge on the people that committed the crimes on his Tusken Raider family. That's fine. That would have worked. But how the show just worked out is like, you got no more development. Once when they showed that, it wasn't really like mentioned until like the very end, when it kind of just came out of nowhere. Because up until that point, you like now there's a lot of people that probably figured out that that was the Pikes that were the ones behind it. But I think the vast majority of people, like, because you were led to believe that it was just this motorbike gang or whatever that did it.
Yeah.
And then you never see them again. And you never see Boba Fett like working towards that goal. Like, you never feel like his troubles of like how that impacted him, right?
Yeah.
You're missing a soul in this show.
Yeah.
Is like the biggest thing. You're missing the soul. And then poor pacing and stuff like that. You just don't see any smart strategies or anything here. And like, I'm not asking you to be like a Napoleon or whatever with these crazy awesome strategies. Like, not every show needs that. But when there's such ridiculous and obviously dumb decisions and so many of them on top of each other, I guess I'm speaking of someone, I am a strategy lover. So, and as a writer and stuff too, I'm more invested in how characters are thinking and the strategy behind it and stuff like that. So I probably have a slightly different perspective than a lot of people, but I'm just, of me watching my like reviews and seeing reviews, I'm seeing a lot of people are just adding up these dumb decisions and stuff like that just throw you out of it.
For younger Star Wars fans, I think it was like a fun show to watch. But again, like, the problem is that like, for everybody who's seen other Star Wars stuff, it didn't pan out the way that I think they were hoping. I feel like a lot of the action sequences that were half decent in the finale, I was sitting there kind of being like, why didn't we see any of this like before? Like, why didn't we have this earlier? Stuff like there was a lot of stuff that happened in the finale that I was like, wow, why didn't we have it happen sooner? Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The one thing that did kind of disappoint me is that like, they talked about how like they're in this war with the Pikes, but the only like real thing that happens in the show is they put out a hit on him in like the first or second episode. That's like quickly taken care of, and then like they bomb one bar at the end, which like, well, and it's gonna sound weird, but like, as somebody who's watched like a lot of like gangster mob movies, that didn't go well, because like the whole point, like, I've watched good mob movies where like the whole point is it's supposed to be like consistent tension, so like, we do this, we do that, like, it's supposed to be going back and forth, and I feel like they could have done that better throughout, like how slow some of the episodes were. I'm not saying like you have to do much, right? But like, maybe be like, okay, they did this, we're gonna do that. Like, have that tension building up, and then like the finale.
You need some type of stakes, and I'm not asking. I'm not asking to just have it action packed. Just some type of stakes and stuff like that. Because the other thing is, like, the whole route of going into this show, it seems like, okay, the point of this show is gonna be Boba Fett building this criminal empire. Yeah. What empire? What criminal organization? Right? Because like, to me, this show didn't even feel like Boba Fett didn't feel like a leader of some criminal organization at all, to me. Yeah. Like, this didn't feel like any criminal organization, really. Yeah. You didn't see any of that.
The thing that's also that was kind of weird to me, like, now that I'm even thinking about it, is that like, this happens like after, like, this kind of happens right after the seasons of Mandalorian, right? So like, in terms of timeline, so it's still a long enough time after Jabba the Hutt died that like, what I did find kind of strange is that they're like, he's just starting out now. I'm like, really? Like, I feel like he would have some sort of like established control on things, if that made sense. Like, I know he just gets the chair right at the end of like season 2 Mandalorian, but like, I had thought that like enough time would have passed that they would have had like
there'd be some type of
just some
organization, right?
Yeah. Even if it's in its early stages, there would have been a little bit more of a handle on things.
Unnecessary fan service of this. So fan service can be well and good. And again, in the not the finale, but the one before, I know a lot of Star Wars fans would rate that like that episode 10 out of 10. I didn't give it because to me a lot of that fan service in it felt unnecessary and threw me out of it. Again, I have a slightly different perspective, but to me, like what the core of it is fan service is well and good, but it needs to have a purpose of why it's in there. In like the Mandalorian, especially season 2, had a lot of fan service, but every fan service had a purpose and reason being there, which only enhanced it. That's why we were so bloody excited when Luke showed up at the end, because he had a reason for showing up at the end.
Yeah,
that made logical sense. In this show, a lot of this just feels unnecessary.
Yeah, it was the sake of fan service for the sake of fan service. Like it had its good, like it did have a couple of good highlights, but again, like unfortunately, it was very inconsistent. Because like I'd say, like for example, I really enjoyed like episode 1 because I was like, oh, we finally got like it's like it started off decent, and then like for some reason once it got past like Boba Fett's once it got past Boba Fett's like backstory and to like more present day, it was like they didn't know
what to do. Yeah.
This is what I don't like sometimes is when they have something like, because like then it's also with those like cyborg kids, right? They have this way of like being able to like save people from death, and I was like, and it's getting iffy for me because like that end credit scene, I was like, oh, that's cool, but like I hope you have a reason that the marshal's back and that you're not just doing it because you can, kind of thing, right? Like, I don't want them doing it just because, like, oh, well, like, the fans are going to be sad. It's like, no, like, yes, that's a cool, like, kind of, like, ability that they have in the show to, like, heal people, save people from dying. But, like, I get for the people of Freetown that's, like, good for morale. He's the leader there and stuff. But, like, I feel like I'll need a reason as to, like, why he comes back. Purpose. And, like, yeah, what purpose is he going to serve when he comes back?
Yeah.
Basically. So, because, like, if anything, like, him dying made sense, right? Because, like, that was, like, he kind of died heroically, right? Like that was like the whole way that they also set up the tension with Cad Bane, right? Is that he comes in, shoots this marshal of like this like pretty like this iconic marshal for this town. And you're like, oh my god, like this guy like does not care. Yeah. And if there's like, oh well, like we just brought him back and it was fine, I'd be like, cool. So that was the thing. My final rating on the show, I know like I initially said 7, but I think I'm gonna have to bump it down to like a 6 now, because like again it was solid. I don't know, it was solid. Again, I want to give it credit for the fact that like the Mandalorian episodes were good. I want to give credit for the fact that like that first, like they had a couple of good episodes, but like unfortunately just the inconsistency of like those good parts was like that's what made it rough for me. Is like it was just highly inconsistent. Yeah, I would kind of sit
6?
on like a 6 right now. Yeah.
Okay. I'm tossing between a 4 or a 5, even with my Star Wars bias.
Oh yeah.
I think this show is below average. I'm gonna give it 4.5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go right in the middle. I would be like, for the average viewer, Mandalorian watcher, or whatever. If you haven't seen any of this, I'll be like, watch episodes 5 and 6. Don't watch anything else. I can tell you right now, I'm probably never going to watch the show again. Just with all the critiques I cannot give it above that, in my opinion. Even with my, if I didn't have my Star Wars biasm, I think this could be a 3. In my opinion. I know sounds harsh, but I'm just going to be honest with you. So that's our final review of Book of Boba Fett.
I think the only other episode that would be worth watching outside the Mandalorian is like the ones that happen right out of the Sarlacc pit. That's about it. Like just if you're curious, like, oh, like how did Boba Fett escape? Watch that episode, and that's pretty much it. Just all right, cool. He like literally like that could be your ending for Boba Fett. He goes and he's with the Sand People.
Done.
And you never have to watch that. Like you know what I mean? And then you never have to watch it again. Yep. And the only time that you see him is in Mandalorian season 2, and then he like takes the seat, and then you can just imagine. You can just imagine his like awesome crime syndicate in this town and not have it kind of squandered by what happens in this show.